guys, it's Shannon. Welcome back to another episode of Yeah, What's the Rate? The podcast for financial equities. I am so happy to be joined by John Pavone of Signature Premier Merrick.
Hello.
Welcome. Thanks for coming.
You're very welcome.
I know you were like, I don't know, this is weird, but I'll do it. I'll show up. You tell me when
Sure,
and where.
of course. Yeah, I like to talk, so.
I mean, me too. So I guess that's easy. So how's everything going? How's life? How's business?
Well, I was saying kind of earlier, like I've been like at the office 3 days a week, 5 hours a day, just crushing it. I'm, I still believe in a little bit of old fashioned, sending out my mailings.
Absolutely.
I have tons of door knockers. On the nicer days, I've been out there walking the streets and look at it.
He's a rarity, guys. You're like an anomaly these days. I don't know that many agents that still door knock.
You know what? I send out a mailing and I follow up like a couple of days later with a door knock, so at least it stays fresh in their heads and
Top of mind. We love it.
do it all again 3 weeks later, constantly.
How have listings been going for you?
I got to say, so in 2022, I really had nothing going on. It was like god awful for me. But I've been in the industry now about 7 years, and I've been planting a lot of seeds. So last year, 2023, some of the veterans in our office were looking at me like, wow, you have like a whole bunch of sales. What are you doing right? I said, I don't know what I'm doing right. It seemed like I'm persistent, and I'm just continually following up with the people that I've been working with for years, and it all seems to be come full circle for me.
I will say consistency is key, and I think a lot of people forget that because even when I started on the mortgage side, like 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago, I would go to an office, introduce myself to the receptionist because, as we all know, receptionists are like the key to the office. Yeah. Like if they don't like you, like you are not getting past the front door. But I would go in and meet them, and then I'd send like a thank you note. Like, hey, thank you so much. It was great to meet you. And there were so many times when I would walk in and like that note would be on their like bulletin board behind their desk or somewhere where I could see it. And I was like, wow, that made an impression. But that like being consistent and constantly kind of just reaching out, people forget how powerful that can be. And even little things like thank you notes or just remembering certain things about them and asking things about whoever you're talking to goes a long way too.
Sure. I also like to do a lot of again, old school stuff. I believe in the power of handwriting a letter to somebody, as crazy as it sounds. Like I have buyers that I'd worked with that live out in Selden. With the old tools. I don't really know them very well. I just knew their brother. They gave me a chance. I helped them buy a house, but I'm not driving out to Selden that often. But I do like to handwrite letters to them. And I send them Christmas cards. I say
Christmas card, birthday card. Hey, congratulations
on
the first anniversary of your home ownership. But I think that again, like keeps you top of mind to them, so they know, like, oh, when they think of somebody else buying a house or they think of somebody else who needs a mortgage, they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to tell them to call John or I'm going to tell them to call Shannon.
Yeah,
so it makes such a difference, and I think the ways of the past, quote unquote, the past, are still so useful, but I think we're in such a technologically advanced world that people really forget it. So tell me a little bit about you, John. That like I know you have a couple of children and you're married.
Yes,
but like
twin boy and a girl.
Yes, and how old are they?
They will be 10 in April.
Oh, that's a fun age.
Yeah, they're heavily involved in sports, running around like crazy.
That was a crazy look you gave me. You're like, yeah.
It's an expensive age because they're so involved in things, and youth activities cost a lot of money, and obviously my industry, our industry works the weekends, so my weekends are nonstop running around,
Definitely. So, what got you into real estate?
Kind of a cool, weird story. So, like, I was a chef.
Oh, okay.
I was a chef. I'm a Johnson & Wales graduate. Nice. I had a great career for 25 years. But a few years before my career ended, I had broke my leg in a stupid jet ski accident. It banged me up really bad. And I was unable to stand on my feet as strong as I would have liked to. So we were moving from West Babylon to Belmore, where my wife's from. And I'm the youngest of four. I was a pretty popular kid. My family was a pretty popular family in the town. My mother taught in West Babylon for over 40 years.
Oh, my God.
So everybody kind of knew her. My parents taught religious instructions. We were heavily involved in the community. So my real estate agent, he was out with me talking on my front lawn, and he was just amazed at how many people were like, "Hey, John. Hey, John. Hey, John. Hey, John." And I'm like, he's like, "What are you, the mayor of West
I
Babylon?"
was going to say the mayor of West
I
Babylon.
kind of was like, my house. I'm not gonna lie, we were the party house back in the day, but my parents always felt I'd rather know where you guys are.
Of course.
So they, they let us kind of do our thing, but none of us were bad kids for the most part. We drank some beers and we played basketball. But he, when we moved to Belmore, he said, "Listen, you got to get into real estate." So, I wasn't able to work on my feet as much as a chef. So I said, "Let me do a career change."
Okay.
And I kind of worked to my favor. It gave me an opportunity to be around my family as much as possible. My wife's a school teacher, so she works Monday through Friday, and she's home at night and on the weekends. And I just started liking being in real estate. Between my wife and I, we are both divorcees and met each other 16 years ago in eHarmony. And between both of our lives, we've bought and sold 7 houses combined.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So we are always like, this is kind of cool. We like looking around at houses. We go on vacations. We find for sale and we go looking at them. So we're like,
I thought I was the only one that did that whenever I go on vacation. I'll see like a house that's listed. I'm like, I want to know what that house is worth.
100%. I have to
I
walk
want
in
to
and
see
see.
what it's listed for.
Let's see what they're getting for a house right now. You never know.
Exactly.
You never know.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So I just really fell in love with the industry.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so you've been in the industry now for, you said, like 7 years. So
Yep.
I've been in just longer than that, on the mortgage side of things. So I've seen some changes, but what do you think are like the biggest changes, like post-COVID?
So let's talk. So I could say that I bought my house 7 years ago, and I bought my house with an interest rate of 3.9.
Okay.
So as soon as COVID hit and all the rates went down, I refinanced with you.
Yes,
and
you did.
we got down
Yes, you
to,
did.
I think,
And we appreciate that.
I think I got down to 2.8 at that, which was which is crazy to do because I just got a mortgage like 2.5 years ago before that. So I look at now and I see everything's somewhat back to working normal, where people are back at the offices a lot, and everybody freaking out about the interest rates. I bought my first house in 2002.
Okay.
When I talk about interest rates, that was really high back then. And I remember we were actually, we I don't remember how much, but we paid like a half a point down. We were like all excited for the half a point. So
I think I will say there's a lot of people, and I always say this, like the first time buyers, the people who have never purchased before, probably in their late 20s, early 30s right now. I think that's a pretty general number. I'm like, ask your parents what they paid for their first house 30 years ago. Ask your grandparents what they paid in their, like, interest rate wise for their first house. I guarantee you they paid 8%, 12%, 18%, and people didn't bat an eye at it.
No, it's
It was
true.
like, that's what it was.
Well, unfortunately, the internet and the ability for everybody to think that they're a genius.
An expert in your area?
Yeah, they it's the truth. It's funny, like real quick, when I was a chef, everybody started watching the Food Network and they all thought they were chefs. I'm a chef because I can follow a recipe and I can cook. There's way more to it
That
than
makes
just
me a
following a
chef.
recipe and cooking, there's way more to it, but there's way more to being a real estate agent than just showing somebody a house. There's so much behind the scenes that we do. People don't realize it. When I have a stressful day at my office and I'm just talking about looking up houses, answering emails, really doing the research of what's necessary. When I pick up my kids at 3:00, my friends can tell you that I look exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
They know I'm exhausted.
Yep. I will say, like, obviously, biggest change on our side, like post COVID, is probably interest rates, obviously. But I tell people all the time, like, if you can afford to buy the house now, even with rates where they are, buy the house. You date the rate, you marry the price. And the only thing that's going to happen when rates go down is prices are going to go up because you're going to have more people on the market that can buy. So I'm like, you might, struggle for a couple months just to like figure it all out. But once rates really truly fall, they're not going to be 2% again. At least,
and I agree.
I mean, I don't have a mirror. I don't have
No,
magic
they're not
eight
gonna
ball,
go down
but
that low, but
they're
they're-
not going to go that low. But they are going to drop.
If they get down to the 4s again, which is reasonable,
and then refinance, and you still have that home at that price versus competing with 150 other people.
and you already know that you can afford that. Like exactly what I did when I refinanced with you, I still make that same payment that I was making
before. Because you pay it off faster.
I already had it factored in anyway. I just decided to take that lower interest rate.
And now in someone like your case, you're making the same payment you're making before. Well, if you come up to a month where you're like, I don't want to make that payment, you don't have to.
It doesn't even
You
affect
have a
me then,
lower
yep.
payment. You can take a break from that for the month. I tell people, people are like, I want a 15-year mortgage, and I'm like, but why? I'm like, make the payment, make the 30-year payment. If you want to make the 15-year payment, you can do that. You'll pay your principal and interest, your principal off first. That's great. But you can take a break if you need to. You're not saddled with that massive
100%.
payment. Like you can say, oh, I want to take my kids on vacation this month. So you know what? We're going to make the normal mortgage payment and have $1,000 extra or $2,000 extra over the course of a month or two to put towards a vacation versus how are we going to do all of this at one time?
I tell people like yourself, like they want to do a 15-year mortgage. I'm like, but okay, you can afford a 15-year mortgage, but why not take out a 30-year mortgage? Whatever that extra payment that would have been, put part of it towards the mortgage, put part of it into an high IRA.
Something. And you'll save, you're still going to pay the mortgage off in less than 30 years, which I think people forget. Even if they take the 30-year, you're still going to pay it off in less if you're paying more towards the principal and interest. And put the money in your bank account. Why are you giving it to somebody else?
Agreed.
So, well, that will lead me into the next thing would be, you say, people don't see the backside. They don't see the stuff that you do behind the scenes. So what are the things that you wish you could say or people could know about like your position as a real estate agent? And I think about this all the time when like, there's things that happen when I'm like, God, I wish that like buyers could understand what we go through as a mortgage person. But like, what do you think that, or I guess wish that they knew, like from the real estate side, that they don't see?
Well, first, people need to know that, I'm going to list my home by myself. I'm going to do a list by homeowner. It's just a fact. You can look up the numbers that people that list by themselves tend to get 7 to 10% less for their house than they would if they list it with an agent.
They think they're saving money because they don't have to pay commission, but they end up getting less overall in the sales price.
100%.
It's so crazy.
And then when you are listing by yourself as a homeowner, and then you have an agent that actually comes in, they're going to be shrewd and they're going to take advantage of you because that's what they do. Mm-hmm. As an agent who's representing my seller, my job is to defend my seller. They throw around that word fiduciary all the time, but it's a real word in our industry. Mm-hmm. And it makes a lot of sense because we are obligated to our client. I'm obligated to my seller. I'm obligated to my buyer. There's no other way around it.
Yep, absolutely. I had a similar situation where I had buyers who were looking at a house that was for sale by owner, and the owner refused to allow any agents. Like they were like, we will not sell you this house if you use an agent. And so my buyers were like, okay, it is what it is. Like, that's fine. But when the appraisal time came, they got, I want to say 50,000 less. Like they could have listed it so much higher.
Sure.
They got like 50,000 less than they could have gotten. And I'm like, that's going to beat the couple percentages points that you saved in commission.
Yeah.
Like you could have gotten so much more, which turned out great for my clients. I'm like, I was happy for them because they ended up having like built-in equity. But it was like, I just don't understand people's like desire and need to just think that they're going to do it on their own and they're going to get what they could get if they used an agent. I'm like, besides the fact that, I mean, you guys do your own marketing, you guys do advertising, you guys are there when people want to see it. You know, if you try and sell it yourself, you're going to have to be there every time somebody wants to see it.
Yeah, 100%. And you have to be willing to do, again, what we as agents do. Mm-hmm. So if there's a situation that comes up and you need a contractor for things, I'm an agent. I have a lot of contacts. I could just call somebody. You need a chimney specialist? We have chimney specialists. You need a roofer? We have roofers, the guys that are reputable that work with our company.
Yep. And you know you're getting like the best information, you know, a very fair price, but they're going to get what needs to be done. And you're not having to like spend your own dollars like in time trying to go out and find those people. So I get that. Absolutely. What do you think are the biggest issues right now facing sellers?
You know, like as far as a sell, like so clearly there's not a lot of listings out there, but I kind of understand that because unless you literally have a second place to go to,
it's tough.
Where are you going to go? And it's not, they're not, not selling because, the interest rates are so high. Again, like if they're going to go somewhere else, they have to be able to afford somewhere. And the entire housing market is high at the moment. But there are a lot of people, listen, we live on Long Island, and unfortunately, fortunately, there are a lot of people have second homes on Long Island. They have second in Florida down south because, when everybody was starting to move to Long Island, they had a little extra money. Let's buy something down south in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And Florida, listen, Florida is great. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing that a lot of older people are selling their house and saying, hey, you know what? Why not just make the
We could
trip
just
down
say
to
like empty nesters.
yeah, empty nesters. We'll call them empty nesters. They're like they're doing what instead of being snowbird, they're just making it. Let's just go down.
Might as well. Yeah.
Go down to Florida. And what's kind of nice I see is that sure they're living in Florida, and I think it's kind of more reconnecting them with their families up here because when they come up here, they're staying with their families a little bit more than
Yeah.
they might have.
Yeah. I mean, how do you think people are really handling like numbers right now? Because obviously we saw such like a huge increase in property values during COVID. I mean, I know you saw it with buyers, especially like getting outbid and people had all this cash. And I'm not going to lie, there were times when I would be like, where are you getting all of this cash?
Yeah.
Like, but I realized something that was happening was people who, empty nesters that still had a rather large home that was worth a pretty good amount of money that may have paid it off, were able to do cash out refis
Yeah.
at a super low rate, a rate below 3%, which is basically like free money. You're not paying a lot of interest on it.
Totally.
And they were able to take that cash and give it to their kids and say, go buy a house. And these kids were coming in, I say kids, I mean, young adults, late 20s, early 30s, as I said, with $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 in cash. And I would scratch my head. I'm like, where is all of this coming from? But it started to make sense when I started to put all the pieces together. So it's like, I feel like people are a little, I don't know, I think their perception is skewed of like sometimes what their house is worth. Do you see that where they really want this number and you're like, but there's nothing here that supports that
I
number?
do see that. Like I have a listing coming up. I'm not going to say where, but they want a certain number and they're saying this is what we want. And I'm like, okay, we're going to discuss this. But the bottom line is I have an equation that I use and this is what is out there. This is what is sold. This is what is listed
like these
right
are the
now.
facts. Like this is the
We'll take a
actual
chance
numbers.
if this is what you want. But I work for you. At the end of the day, these are the numbers. So if you don't get this, you can't really get mad at me with that.
Of course. And I think you see so much more value and like fight for a home when you say the house, the comps are showing the house is worth $750. If you even listed it at $740, you're going to see way more people come in and you're more than likely, I feel like, going to get more than $750 because you have so many more people who are like, it's a great house. It's a great price.
It's a great price, great house. Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's super important.
Another thing, like I at least I've seen with a lot of the younger Long Island people is that listen, there's apartment complexes all over Long Island for people to get out there and and rent a 1-bedroom apartment for $1,100 like there are in a lot of other places. So they stay
Not
home.
a chance. It's
they stay
true.
home and listen again. They're saving their money. I mean, hopefully, I'm seeing that a lot of young people on Long Island save their money. If they're not paying rent, they're saving money, and that's why a lot of Long Islanders have a decent amount of money.
It could be
To put down.
I will say, coming from the Midwest, definitely, like, you moved out. As soon as high school was over, you went, if you didn't go to college, you basically moved out, you got a job, whatever, or you went to college. When you came home from college, you moved out. But it was cheaper. I look back, my first apartment was $499 a month for 630 square feet, which is actually rather big when you think about it. But then I moved here and I'm like, why are so many people living at home? It didn't really register with me, like, why? And then I got into this a little bit more and I'm like, okay, now this makes sense. And I have a ton of people who are buying houses together, whether they're engaged, not quite married yet, whatever, still both live at home, still saving those dollars. And I commend the people who will do that and save that money, because you do have the kids who just don't, and their parents don't really force it upon them, and then they want to move out and they don't really have a lot. But I have given some of my friends who still have children living at home, I'm like, here's what you should do. This is just a tip that I like to give. Charge them $500 a month. Whether or not you use that $500 is your choice. But charge them $500 so they're used to paying something.
Sure.
Put it in a bank account. And when they want to buy their first home, give it back to them. It's like a forced savings that you're not realizing that, or that they don't realize that you're doing. But then you can give them basically the money that they saved anyway, and they're not able to touch it.
And they're used to making a payment on that.
And they're used to making some kind of payment. But I think it's a beneficial way to like keep the ones at home like in that mindset of paying. But yeah, it's tough on Long Island. I tell you what, prices are crazy right now. But I understood as I got into this more and more why so many people still lived at home. So
Well, so I left when I was young. I joined the military right out of high school.
thank you for your service,
Thank
by the
you.
way.
And I was stationed in San Diego. And I was stationed in San Diego, Southern California, a lot of colleges around there. I got to tell you, it was a major culture shock for me. Like you said, when you're 18 years old, you're either going away to college, and all those local colleges had dorms.
Yep.
Or you're moving in with your friend and getting out an apartment.
Yep.
Like, it was so crazy. So then when I came back to the East Coast and I'm seeing everybody around here, like we're still living at home, I was like, this is really weird to me because everybody I knew was living on their own
Oh, yeah.
and doing what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
But again, not all my friends are successful. They all, stayed the course, saved their money.
And it's more affordable. I laugh, getting a 1-bedroom apartment on Long Island will cost you $3,000 a month. Like you might as well buy something. Even if you bought a tiny starter house, it's still better than paying someone else's mortgage
Agreed.
or paying it to some big company who's just collecting rent from hundreds of units.
It's crazy, the rental market right now.
Oh, yeah,
It's
definitely.
crazy.
Well, guys, I wish we could talk all afternoon.
Having some fun.
But I think our time has come to an end. So if you guys want to hear more about John or follow John, you have Instagram, John?
Maybe.
Well, how can they get in
I'm on
touch with you?
Facebook.
Okay, how
I'm
can
on
they get in
Facebook.
touch with you?
John Pavone. I'm on Facebook. I'm also North Belmont, North America Little League.
He's a dad. He's out
I'm
there.
a dad. I
like
coach
it.
Little League. Yep.
And the Signature Premier Properties.
And I work for
Merrick
Signature
office.
Premier Properties.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to hear more from us, obviously make sure you follow our page. And if you want to hear more about me, you can find me on Instagram.